ISO 600 covers the audit of group financial statements. Okay, this we have also covered in detail in your second year of studies. Okay, but just a little bit of a recap. Remember that the audit of the group, okay, the group financial statements are the responsibility of the group engagement partner. Okay, so it's that audit partner who is responsible for the audit of the group or the consolidated financial statements then. Okay, that partner has then the responsibility for understanding the group, all of its components. When we say components, we mean all of the companies that form part of the group. Okay, so the subsidiaries, the joint ventures, and all of the other related entities. Okay, so the group engagement partner then has the responsibility for understanding the entire group, its components, and then the environment in which they operate. He also has the responsibility for setting the group audit strategy. Okay, so the audit, the engagement partner for the group audit, he would then need to look at, after he has conducted his understanding of the group environment, he needs to then assess whether there are any specific significant risks, okay, that come to light from that understanding for the group as a whole, and that then needs to be communicated to all of the component auditors as well. Group engagement partner also then is responsible for setting the group materiality and then for allocating that group materiality to the various components. Okay. Then he also needs to assess whether there are any insignificant components within that group. Okay. So if, for example, there is a dormant company or there is a small property company that perhaps only has a vacant piece of land for which the client only intends to develop at a later stage. It could be that those components within the group, after the engagement partner has assessed materiality, it could be that those components are assessed as insignificant or immaterial components, and then the engagement partner could decide that those specific components do not need to be audited for the group purposes, but perhaps a review of their financial information could be sufficient for the purposes of the group audit. Okay, so that is the responsibility then of the group engagement partner. Okay, it could be though that even though those components could be immaterial or insignificant for the purposes of the group, if they are companies incorporated as companies, then they could possibly have a statutory audit conducted as well. Okay, statutory audit is that audit that is required in terms of the that all companies need to then be audited. Okay, could also be that where the group engagement partner has set materiality for the group and then allocated that to the components in terms of their significance, it could be that the materiality, the group materiality, or the component materiality that has been set for a component could be more than the statutory materiality that the component auditor calculates in terms of auditing that set of financial statements for its statutory purposes. Okay, in that case, if the component auditor is also the statutory auditor, okay, the statutory auditor then would need to conduct the audit of the component in terms of the lowest materiality figure, the statutory materiality. But then it could possibly be that not all differences which are assessed as material on the statutory level could then be immaterial at the group level. So that would then influence the group reporting. Okay. In terms of the consolidation process, okay, how the entity conducts its consolidation, if they have any controls over that process for ensuring that all of the different components in their group that they report on their figures in an accurate and timely and complete manner. If management have controls over those processes, then the responsibility of the group engagement partner would be to test those controls and then also then test the consolidation process substantively, okay? And then he would then be able to assess whether the consolidation and the consolidated set of financial statements, whether that is then accurate and complete. Okay. The Group auditor can place reliance on the work of the component auditor. Okay, he would then need to indicate to the component auditor specific reporting deliverables that would need to be delivered to the group auditor. Okay, however, he is not allowed to refer to the component auditors in his audit report. Okay, and he cannot specifically make mention of their work. Okay, but he can incorporate that work into his audit evidence, but he may not then specifically mention them in his reporting. And then obviously he can only rely on component auditors where he has done specific work with respect to their competence and their independence as well. But you should remember that from your second year. Okay. Okay, ISO 610 covers using the work of internal auditors. Could be that if a company has an internal audit function, we as the external auditors, we could use the work of the internal audit function which they have already prepared, or we could possibly use the internal auditors themselves, okay, as part of the engagement team. Okay, so they assist our external audit engagement team in conducting the audit. Okay, so where we are using the work of the internal audit function, we would then obviously need to assess their objectivity, their level of competence, and whether they use a systematic and disciplined approach, i.e. do they use any specific set of guidelines to guide their procedures. Okay. The internal auditors, they would also then need to be objective with respect to how they conduct their work. Okay, it is not entirely possible as they receive directives from management and they report to management. But if they have a independent reporting line where they report to the audit and risk committee directly on the board of directors, then it could be that their objectivity is enhanced in that manner. Okay, and then their level of competence, if they belong to a professional body, if they have their certified internal audit certification, and so that would mean that they have specific training with respect to how they need to conduct their internal audit work. Okay, so where they provide direct assistance or we use them as part of our engagement team, okay, we need to assess whether there is any threats to their objectivity, okay, because remember they normally they carry out the directives of management. However, now we require them to assess evidence from an independent or objective point of view, which is free from any bias. Okay, so we need to assess those threats to objectivity, and then we need to assess whether whether it is a significant threat and what safeguards we can implement there as well. Okay, so we need to provide them the appropriate direction, okay, for what we are actually what the purpose of the audit would be and the purpose of the specific audit procedures, okay, and then supervise the entire process of evidence gathering from their side, and then obviously review their work as well so that we are comfortable that we are able to use their work. This all would need to be agreed upon specifically between ourselves, the company, and then the internal auditors that we are going to make use of them as part of our engagement team. Okay, so the relationship between internal and external auditors, you should remember this, that the internal auditor is part of management, it is part of the company, whereas the external auditors, they are, as the name suggests, external to the company. They are responsible for forming an opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly presented or not, whereas the internal auditors, they do not have a specific objective with respect to the financial information alone, but they then carry out whatever objectives manage or directives that management have issued, and they would then assess whether any policies and procedures are appropriately complied with. Okay, so we would need to then, we as the external auditors, okay, we would need to assess the internal audit function with respect to their organizational status within the organization. How valued are their or is their function? Okay, so is it considered important? Would their findings that the internal audit function comes up with, would it be viewed in a serious light and then appropriately rectified? What is the scope of their function? Okay, is there any limitations or any restrictions on their scope? What are their competencies? Do they have the appropriate training and the technical competence? Do they carry out their function with due care and professionalism in order for us to be able to rely on their work? Okay. Then we would also have to, in terms of just the logistics of the arrangement, we would need to then discuss the timing of our and coordination of our liaison, of our relationship, and then eventually would get to a point where we are able to evaluate their work and then place reliance on that work if the circumstances dictate. Okay. ISO 16 then guides us with respect to specific situations or specific circumstances where we as the external auditors may not use internal audit. Okay, and that is for areas where significant judgment has been applied by management. Okay, so that may be in areas of accounting estimates. It could be that there was significant judgment applied by management. And we are not able to use the work of internal auditors there, or where we as auditors would be required to apply significant judgment or our professional judgment, then we may not delegate our responsibilities to the internal audit function. High risk areas, we may also not use internal auditors. Okay, and then as well in areas where the internal auditors were involved in the work, okay, or where we should make an audit decision over the work of the internal auditors, we then cannot use them because obviously they will not be independent or objective with respect to carrying out our objectives over testing of those areas where they were involved in themselves as well. Okay, then the entire arrangement of using the work of internal auditors, that needs to be communicated with those charged with governance, i.e. management, and then as well the board of directors or the governing body. The benefits of using internal audit would then be, obviously we would have a more cost-effective audit, okay, because we're using some of the resources which the client would then provide. Our audit risk would also then be a little bit more limited, okay, because think about what audit risk means. Audit risk is then the risk that we're going to issue the incorrect opinion. So that would then be limited because we're using the subject experts on that, on the client's processes and policies. Okay, they have the appropriate expertise and they have a good relationship with the staff of the client. Okay, so we're able to harness that relationships and then just ensure that we have a more smooth and appropriate audit being conducted. Okay.